I hate you, Steve.
I always love starting the episode laughing. Trying to be self-serious. He was just so caught off guard. He was like, trying to hold that laughing.
Hi, folks. Welcome back.
What a pivot.
To another episode of I'm Not Supposed to Be Here.
I'm not supposed to be here. Nah, if you ever seen that clip, that shit is so
Yes,
funny.
indeed. I am one of your hosts, Trent L. Dickson.
Shout out Wilhelm.
And I'm sitting across. Oh my God. A Santa Claus from my main man.
Hey, Eclectic Sage, on time today, on the clock. On the clock, clocked in, punching in. If you get Mike, you already know we keep it, we ad-libbing. And I'm also sitting next to the wonderful
Stephen Bassile. I need to come up with a better name or something. I don't know. I say it and it's like, damn.
No, that's a fire name. I don't know what you mean.
It has aura to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no aura whatsoever. No. But I'm also sitting across from
Mari, also known as Slow Rewind.
Ooh.
Fine artist. You guys know me from last week. I appreciate everyone here, and I appreciate being on the show.
Yeah.
See, that's a cool ass name, man.
We
gotta step ours up, Trent.
What? this is the Black Ronin.
I mean, that's why I put the L in there. It makes you feel a little extra, a little special.
Okay, so I'm the plain one. Got it. Cool.
Is L Esquire?
Did I ever reveal what the L stands for on the show?
No, I don't think so. I think the audience deserves to know.
Good. I like some mystery. Yeah. I like to keep a little mystery.
Oh, I guess we don't deserve to know.
Wait, do you have a middle name?
Yes. Oh, and it actually does begin with L.
Oh.
So now I'm gonna have to try to guess it now, but I'm gonna do that now.
Wait, do you have a middle name?
Of course I do.
I'm crying.
Starts with A.
Oh.
Ooh. You look like an Alfred.
This is
Stephen Alfred Bassile.
I'm not that cool.
Yeah, this is funny because like when no visual, people are like, I see it too.
I'll show you mine if you show me yours.
Okay.
Oh.
Maybe by the end of the episode. Okay. We'll see how
it's a little too early on the night for that. We gotta.
It is. Yeah.
Oh man, it's so fun recording at night. I remember when we recorded like mid-afternoon and day. It's like we're so excited.
I need food.
Yeah, we're like so excited and stuff. Now it's like very chill. Very cutesy, very demure. I'm dating myself, but I love cutesy and demure. It's a fun combo. Bro, like it's dead. I'm like, no, for me, no.
Yeah.
It's not dead as long as you keep it alive.
Yeah, like, hey, absolutely. Language is language.
How's everybody doing? How's everybody's week been?
Hey man, I've been great. I've been taking it one day at a time. It was very weird earlier this week. I felt like listening. I've been listening to you guys' podcast a lot. Like just trying to learn how to become a better co-host. Whatever guest. I don't fucking know. I don't know what I'm here to do. I'm here to be myself, and I'm here to be the best version of myself. And I don't know if I was self-conscious or it was a self-esteem thing, but I was definitely listening back to it, and I was like, I gotta do better next time.
Hey, I mean, we're always doing better every day. When we first started, we were a little rough.
That was me on the first one. I was so nervous. Ugh.
That's me every episode.
I'm actually like pissing myself right now. You just can't see it.
You can't see it. Hey, this is why we keep the video off for at least for this season.
Yep. At least for this season.
Yeah.
No. You did really well. I don't know.
I appreciate it, gentlemen.
Yeah. I know how it is being an artist. You're being hard on yourself, unnecessarily so. But I do appreciate you wanting to be better.
And the honesty and the vulnerability, and it's fire because like it's fun to do the podcast, and when you get that range of like comfortability, it's just a lot of fun, a lot of ad-libbing, a lot of just playing off of each other. I like that the podcast is not really all that edited because it's just like this is just a really raw kind of format of conversation.
That's the best kind. That's the
best kind of conversation. It's the one that just flow. You don't have to like edit it or change it around. It's just get the way it is.
I did change around some stuff on the last one though.
Oh, you did? I forgot.
Because we name dropped a place.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
So I did have to go and edit that out.
Wait, the place that shall not be named?
Yes, that place. I actually said it on.
That's funny. I remember. I didn't get to listen to the episode yet.
Yeah,
but I didn't hear it. It was just bleeped out, right?
Something like that.
Oh, okay. Oh, this is an actual like cut. Oh, this is funny.
It was
Let me go
weird
check that
edit,
out.
but I wanted it to be weird. Anyway, how's everybody's week been?
I'm excited. Shout out to Good Natured Souls for all people that are
Shouts out to
unaware.
GNS.
Good Natured Souls is going to be like a music label. It's gonna be filled with duels from the X, Janai, Jazz.
What?
Free Spiritu, also known as Andrew Maffey now, just changed the name. Prince Inspiration, myself, and many others in the future. So just very happy to speak to it. And yeah, we just had a lot of shows this week. There's another show tomorrow. Yeah, it's been a busy week. So at least most, if not everybody, had a show within like the last 2 weeks or so. So good kind of like stuff on that. Oh, and also Tiara too. Tiara Vernon. Yeah, she's amazing. I'm so excited. I can't wait for her project to come out. That's all I'm gonna say. She's probably my favorite project for like just casual listening, just to something to live with. That one's a lot of fun to listen to.
Yeah, everybody's got really good projects.
Yeah.
That one's definitely special.
That one's.
I mean,
very
they're all special. I don't want to make anybody feel like this.
I know.
But they're all good. They're all really, really good.
I think Manifest is a classic. I'm gonna call it now before it's even out.
I think I was telling Jules the other day, like the beginning and the end of Manifest is crazy, and I can't wait to play that on the podcast.
It's like a full circle moment type of work.
Yeah.
I know people are like, "Oh man, I haven't heard any of it." So it's
it's like, what the hell are they talking about?
but yeah, I mean, it's for us to know and for you to find out.
Eventually, you'll hear it. You'll catch up. How about y'all? How was y'all's week? What's up?
I mean, mine was pretty plain. Work, some reading on the train.
Hey, what you been reading?
Loving the wife. That's about it.
Hey.
I've been reading. I started the Red Rising trilogy recently. It's a sci-fi series by the author Pierce Brown. Really good. Really good. It's a bit dark.
A quick synopsis of that, real quick.
All right, I'll try to do a quick one. I'm so bad at like elevator pitches or whatever, but it's basically about it takes place in our future solar system world, whatever, and it's about a society that has basically been reduced to a caste system that separates people by color.
Wow.
And you have the low colors like the reds, the blues, the greens, the yellows, who are overruled by the gold class, who is this peak of like human existence that like feels like because they were able to take the rest of the solar system by force, they are the ones who should be able to rule while the others toil underneath them. And it's about a red named Darrow who has his wife killed in front of him by a gold.
Wow.
And begins and is approached by this uprising of other low colors that are like, we're tired of this. We're going to basically turn you into a gold to infiltrate them and take them down from the inside.
Hunger Games, but it's not Hunger Games.
Yeah, it's really really good. It is a bit darker, but not super dark. But it's a great series so far.
That's darker than.
I would say dark. Around along the lines of the Hunger Games books, not the movies. The movies weren't as dark as the books, in my opinion.
The books were pretty dark. Like they were, for young adult fiction, they were pretty pretty descriptive of like the nature of the violence, and it was like it didn't like make it so that the violence was like pretty. It was like very grotesque, and it was like this is actually happening to kids. Like make sure that you're like taking this into account. And it was just like it made the story a lot better, like to read honestly when you're just like going through it. And the suspense is great in that movie too.
I think the best thing, like, or little blurb from the book that sets the tone best, and it's like a little excerpt in regards to like hanging essentially.
Yeah.
And it basically goes, on Mars you have to pull the legs to crack the neck.
Wow.
They let the loved ones do it.
Wow.
That's
And
so
that
foul.
like I was like, oh my god.
But wow.
Yeah.
But
So
it's just like it's also like I feel like the dramatic kind of like punchiness of that, and I could tell it's like a good like well written book. It's just whenever an artist uses syntax and just plays with like syntax and just the way that a sentence is structured and just like breaks it down to like its core things just to give like just straight punch, just like
it's
no
like a
extra
visceral
fluff.
reaction, you know, like that. Really, it's that hook that kind of just in those two sentences. I was like, I'm reading this book. That's all I needed.
That's all you need. That's all you need. Just that's how you could tell. Like some books now, when I read them, I'm just like, yeah, this is not well written. Like I can't read it anymore.
Oh yeah, I've had that happen to me too.
But there's so many books like that. That's the only bad thing with certain books that, yes, for simplicity you can have a simple book, but if you just do bare things of like syntax, it's just you don't need to use like crazy flowery language. You just gotta communicate. Just play with
like the hero's journey.
Yeah, the hero's journey.
One of the classic tropes. One of the most classic tropes of any story.
Yeah, but you're talking about Joseph Campbell, right? Like reading the book, or just like hero's journey in general.
No, hero's journey in general.
Oh, the hero's journey in general. Yeah, I mean the hero's journey is like an interesting trope, and it's funny because like I feel like some of the mysticism of that book comes from the fact that people think that every book is a hero's journey, but I mean, or like every story could fit into that. So sometimes they do like kind of like, you know, we'll discount all these kind of facts and details that don't support it and just kind of fit it into the hero's journey. But I mean, it's just a trope also. And it's just like, it uses like archetypes. And I remember when I was younger, shout out to this YouTube channel, it's like Overly Sarcastic Productions. They used to do trope talk. If you're a bookworm, you know about them.
Oh, I know
they used to, yeah,
I
they
feel like
used
I've
to,
heard of them.
yeah, they used to do like the animations. And I remember the host had like a book called Trope Talk, and she'll talk about archetypes and trope writing. And yeah, the hero journey is like one of the more popular tropes, from taking a person from status quo to status quo, but changing as a person in the between times. But yeah, there's a lot of that's like high key for narrative storytelling, which kind of goes into our topic for the day. If I'm going to segue,
Beautiful segue.
Yeah, hey, might as well segue since it's here.
Might as well.
Yeah, our topic for today is
We're talking about narratives, specifically the narrative of the villain. And we're going to be speaking a little bit to the evolution and the roles that they play in the stories and, you know, how they have a subsequent effect on our hero.
that's fire, and they're a crucial part in the hero's journey for a lot of tropes.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I guess how would you kind of take your opinion, or kind of how do you view the hero's journey?
Me, myself, I feel as if I have to pull out my notes.
Go for it.
You got the
While
notes
you're,
ready.
while
He's
you're searching
prepared.
for your notes, I just want to kind of break it down just a little bit and sort
before we
of
start.
talk about the, you know, the different eras that the villain has existed in and how it's existed. That, you know, hopefully to help us provide some context. So
Yeah.
you know, when we
Yeah,
bring
like
up
what?
specific
Number one
examples.
question: what is a villain?
So, really, a villain is an antagonist, a narrative, or sometimes the villain doesn't necessarily have to be a person. I forget the specific term for it, but there's a really cool term that I learned that I didn't write down. It's actually on my other laptop because I was working off like two, because I'm weird like that.
Oh, you were just hacking into the mainframe, but you
Yeah,
just you just had the 5 screens that had to be.
Easy, Neo. Damn.
What about
No,
hero?
real quick though, I saw some shit I might buy that's gonna give me like 4 screens on this,
Damn.
and it's affordable. And I was like, I can do
Whoa.
that for work and for editing and for writing.
Oh man,
I might,
what's that
yo.
computer guy that's in the Matrix?
Dozer, Tank and
Yeah,
Dozer.
yeah, take it. Yeah,
Yeah.
You're gonna be him. He's gotta give me the locks. You're gonna...
Just gonna be bumping to some Depeche Mode. Just
Nah, Mark's like I haven't seen the
What is
Matrix.
Depeche Mode?
I mean, it's the specific to the one I'm talking was like the.
No.
Yeah.
You never heard that?
I've never heard that.
Really? I mean, that's the only thing I know about them. I'll show you after the podcast. But it's the perfect like hacker sound.
Thank you.
Yo, really? Oh, that shit's fun. I can't. I like that.
No, but the villain is there to create obstacles and to separate a hero from their wants and or needs. I would say in a very simplistic way.
Yeah.
Anybody have a better definition than that?
I mean, that's pretty good. I mean,
Yeah.
It does go deeper than that, but it really depends on the situation and the villain and the story and stuff like that. But on like the surface level, it is essentially what you said. It's the person that it kind of goes opposite of your protagonist and you know tries to stop him from doing what he wants to do. So,
Yeah, and I think I feel like heroes and villains tend to be opposites of each other, but they're like mirror reflections of each other. And it's
At
just
times,
it's
yes.
at times, yes, and it's just like a lot of times, especially in recent narrative kind of storytelling, the villains tend to take specific traits from the heroes and just corrupt them.
And I think a lot of times they're not necessarily opposites. A lot of times they're the same. You know, the biggest difference between heroes and villains, I think, is how they react to their situation or their circumstances. But anyway, I was going to go through this specific areas.
We're jumping way ahead.
Yes, no. I love tangents. We love tangents here. So it's defined by different eras. So, so the golden age of villains, and we're sticking sort of to. But we're not going exclusive to comic books and movies, just to kind of narrow it down because it is a very broad subject because you can look at different literature, you know, just you can go all over the place with it. You can even look at like historical actual villains, but I digress. So the 1930s and the 1950s sort of was a golden age for villains, and that's sort of more looked at as your mustache twirling, simplistic. Let's tie a damsel in distress on the train tracks. You know, let's blow up the city. Very straightforward. Normally embodying clear-cut evil. You can look at, you know, the first appearances of, say, the Joker, or Lex Luthor, or even Dr. Doom. You know, not a lot of times, not very much backstory. And then you have the mid 1950s to 1970s, and that's when you see that's called the Silver Age, and that's when you see a shift in complexity. And they sort of gained more tangible motivations, a lot of mental instability, a lot of tragic backstories. You can look at Magneto, the Riddler, Green Goblin, things like that. And then your 1970s to 1980s sort of birthed the anti-hero and anti-villain. These are people who are more morally ambiguous. They live in sort of a gray area, and they sort of started to, I guess, acknowledge a system that was a little more corrupt. Yeah. And they were responding to that. You can look at Venom, Thanos, and even in some cases the Punisher. And then then the 1990s to present, you get your modern / postmodern villains that have a little, my favorite type of villains. Of course, that are a little more personal with their motives. They're very multifaceted. They're very complex. And a lot of times you'll find audiences sympathizing with them. You know, you have your Killmongers, your Dark Knight Jokers, and of course, once again, Thanos, Loki's, and things like that. So, yeah, and keep in mind, folks, when we're talking about these eras, when we do mention them, they are not what's the word I'm looking for?
Like, there's no clear-cut division between one starts and one ends.
Yeah,
right?
and there's a lot of overlap, and there doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, there's no overlap. Like you can get a Bronze Age villain in postmodern era as well. So it's not like across the board, but it's a lot of what was I guess what was popular and what is done a lot throughout that era. All right, okay, so
hey, can we get a one for that? that was a great breakdown.
Appreciate you. Yeah. I feel like I'm giving myself the one.
Yeah, you did great.
So no. Back to your notes. Let's hear what the great Mari has to say.
You put me on the spot, man. What's the first question we're starting with? The first one I have here is, what is the value of the villain in these stories?
Yeah. So I mean, if there's okay. I mean,
yeah, that's a good starting place, honestly.
Yeah.
What I have is what is the value of these villain in these stories? For me, the answer is to reflect on the 7 deadly sins. Off the top of my head, I put here, Dr. Doom is prideful. He is the man. He's number one. He literally gets the gauntlet in one of the stories. I'm not off the top of my head. I'm not sure which one, but he is Dr. Doom. He's the guy. He's supposed to be number one. He is prideful. He's representative of that sin. Thanos is lustful for Mistress Death. Obviously, he tries to get rid of half the population, but he does it for her hand in love. He wants to be seen and acknowledged by her. Yeah. So for me personally, I would say lustful. But I feel like the best villains are a mixture of 2 to 4 sins, like Ultron. So Ultron is wrathful and envious. So yeah, he is wrathful, because he hates all humans, but he is also envious because he cannot be human. Almost like Am from what's that book? Am.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
I know who you're talking about. That's a very, very deep cut.
Am. Yeah, you guys know at home. Good
How
book.
do you spell that?
A-M.
AM. I remember because I had a Hulk encyclopedia when I was younger, and a Spider-Man encyclopedia, and he's like mentioned he crosses paths with them.
Oh, Ultron?
No,
Am
AM.
is a beautiful villain. He is oh, I have no mouth and I must scream.
My wife loves that book.
It is a beautiful book. But back to what I was saying. Yeah, it's the best villains are 2 to 4 sins, and the best hero are 2 to 4 sins. The opposite.
Yeah.
Opposite of greed is to give away.
Like the virtues and
Yes,
everything.
you get what I'm trying to say. For me, that's how I would write a superhero. For me personally.
Yeah, I think that's a. Trent like,
Damn it, Mario! I was feeling self-conscious, and you come out swinging.
yeah, he was ready.
Damn, I love that.
That was beautiful.
That was. No, I think that's a very interesting take, especially. It tends to it kind of lends itself to how I feel about villains. I don't know why I'm cleaning. It's not my table. It's like the best villains tend to be not necessarily an opposite, but a reaction to our hero. You know, there's a good amount of balance between them, and I think that your take kind of displays that. What did you say Dr. Doom was?
Dr. Doom is prideful.
Pride.
He is pride.
Yeah.
The sin of pride.
Yeah,
No,
and I like that. I like that. Like villains over time, they kind of reflect the transitions of, let's say, like a core kind of prideful type of moment, and then take that across different eras, because that's like a very human thing. But the ways in which it manifests in society, it can be reflected in the Golden Age hero, just a mustache twirling hero, or just like the postmodern hero that has a complicated backstory and has motivations that are fully realized, but still kind of falls into like that kind of prideful, ego-based type of thing, and it changes from time to time to kind of speak to it. And I kind of want to go on a side tangent to bring, I guess, like a meta narrative type of angle to it. So meta, anytime you think about meta, is just talking about the environment that creates the type of stories that you inhabit. So like you're saying, like it has a kind of 7 deadly sins. So when you look at it, it's just like, oh yeah, where is American comics are often seen as like the American mythology. And so if you take the history of America and everything, and the ways in which, you know, Protestantism is like pervasive in just the structure of our society, it makes a lot of sense why, you know, a hero or a villain may be put in the framework of 7 deadly sins.
Yes.
And it would be, that's the kind of meta narrative, and why specific eras speak to specific things.
Yes.
And then another thing I wanted to also mention and include, shout out to I think his name is Scott Neisender from NerdSync, but he talks about the Comics Authority, who was also in charge of, you know, providing censorship during specific eras, and that also kind of curbed the nature of the narratives to the way in which Silver Age became like a little bit less hero centered and more monster centered, and then how that worked itself back into monster making movies and media that kind of followed subsequently. But yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head with just like emulating a kind of wrath or type of sin in that type of Western mentality, and how it pervades in the mythology that we create through superheroes, and just how, you know, that's a super important way to write a hero, and it's a good like super fire framework to kind of start. But I guess, how do you feel?
I really like the allegory of villains being represented by sins, and especially, you know, the heroes being the opposite. For me, my favorite type of villains are, you know, most people are pretty happy with like the classic villains who like, you know, just come in and mess things up because they can or because they want to. And, you know, you have that hero who's like, I know what's right from wrong. I'm going to come swoop in and save the day.
Yeah, the Agents of Chaos versus like the Agents of
exactly. You know, you got, oh, this thing is wrecking the city. I have to stop it. You know, and that's a bare bones thing. But like, for me, as the narrative of heroes and villains evolved over the years, especially in regards to like comic books or movies and stuff like that, I really found myself drawn to the villains that I almost empathized with.
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
the ones that really make you think, like you mentioned, Killmonger. Ooh. Killmonger is one of my most favorite villains of all time.
Well
Like
written.
The Black Panther movie was amazing by itself, but it truly transcended, I feel, because of Killmonger. Because it was one of the first times I can really recall looking at that and thinking, "Wow, I'm really not sure if he's a villain." Because like what he's saying is so unbelievably true. The only thing really separating from him and making him into a villain was how he was maybe going about it. But otherwise, like, it's one of those gray areas where the line is so thin. For a second, you don't know which side you're ending up on. And for me, those are the most amazing villains, the ones that make you think, and the ones that really, really resonate with you on like some type of primal level.
Yeah.
It's
And that.
go ahead. Nah,
I was about to say, like, Killmonger definitely inspired this episode because I think we had a conversation and it was talking about how radical messages often get put onto villain archetypes and characters, and you know, in the kind of realm of politicals and in the political spectrum, with kind of like a liberal type of leaning hero with just kind of, you know, piecemeal type of diplomacy and kind of creating that neoliberalism idea of just having, you know, we'll work it out within time with diplomacy, and then you have like a kind of radical figure that kind of went and lost his way, and that speaks to a lot of like what we experienced in like postmodernism with like people like MLK versus, and they put it MLK versus the story of Malcolm X, and they say like, look, there was the right and the wrong way, and there's a lot of very, I guess, timely references that they make in the creation of these stories to make you really think like these people were very aligned at the end of both of their lives, but you know, it's the way that it facilitates, it's the way that it structures, and you know, rest in peace to Chadwick Boseman, because I know that they wanted to bring the story a different direction, but I love the direction that they did for Black Panther 2.
Agreed.
But I can tell like the writers really wanted to keep on pushing that forward with Ryan Coogler and everything too.
You know, a lot of comic book fans really dislike the MCU, and I really hate that because even though they say it's not realistic, it's not. It's too realistic. It's not close to the comics at all. It's not as cartoony. They don't dress the way they should.
It's not supposed to be.
It's not supposed to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when we get moments like Tony in Endgame when he snaps, and you know Robert Downey Jr. Oh man,
Yeah, I mean, it's
7 years.
7 years. It's crazy that's 7 years. Yeah,
Jesus. I remember that trailer. Nerding out for a little bit when that trailer dropped.
That was such a, and they didn't even use that scene.
I must have watched that shit like 60 times. I was ready.
I'll take that and I'll raise I'm so not to cut you off. But I'll raise you like being in the theater midnight Endgame.
Wow,
one of the most insane experiences of my life.
It was insane. It was crazy.
Yo, when Junior came to Cap, I still get goosebumps.
My theater erupted.
What?
It was one of the only times, and I still now. I did not care how loud that place was because I was loud too. I was screaming. It was
I only
insane.
felt that like one time before, and that was at the beginning of the Star Wars series when they finally brought it back when like Rey came onto the screen, and then it was just the title card and people were excited.
Yeah, but people were ready. People were ready. Yo, fuck the haters. I love the MCU, especially the first 3 to 4 phases. It's not to say that they haven't had low points, but as far as
consistency and quality is great.
And their contributions to comic book culture as a whole, like you can't deny that.
And it's exactly like Mario was saying, where it's like it wasn't. People were mad because they thought, "Oh, this is so like different from the comics and how it was supposed." But that's not how it was supposed to be. It's a different medium. For a different time period, and those movies were meant to not only meant to sell movies and be epic and be awesome, but also meant to convey the issues and problems that were going on for us right now.
Absolutely,
it was any movie is an allegory of that time, and just because it fits into the realm of like superheroes doesn't make that any different.
Facts.
All right. Spitting. Wait. Did you have some more? Because I wanted to jump in. What you got?
Go ahead. I was going to say one of the greatest, most well-aged supervillains of all time.
Oh, I'm ready.
It's always going to be Magneto.
Oh,
yes,
and
I can't wait till he joins back into the MCU. He was in there, but like that Sony universe kind of disconnected.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, right now they're trying to build up for it, and I definitely seen it. And that's one of the problems with the Marvel films. I see what they're trying to build, but as like a film critic, as a guy who knows film, it's like I can't say that they're going the wrong way about it, but it's like, oh, you guys had something, but you're so firm in what you believe and what's already set up, that you can't fall back.
Yeah, that's another thing. Like with just the medium of comics, and I was talking about this with like Spider-Man. It's just like, and the nature of like maybe they should let mainline Spider-Man grow up. And I've been having this argument with people.
It is time.
It is time. It's time. Like the fact that like the writers themselves came out and said that we're not going to let him grow up is like, that's a tragedy in itself, because you're just limiting the nature of like where you can take a character. There's a lot of interesting things that you can do with already established people, and it's just like it's okay for time to pass for a character, or for time to
now that you actually
work.
said that, there is an actual current run on Ultimate Comics. They restarted it up,
Yeah.
and he is grown up in that story. Yeah, it's fire.
It is. He's like 30 something with kids.
Oh, snap.
That's
really cool.
It's actually really good too. It's weird.
I wish to see an older Spider-Man.
I wish they would have titled it something else, because they've already done an Ultimate run of comics. But anyway, that's besides the point. I'm sorry.
Tangent.
But so it's funny that you said what you said.
Yeah.
Because that was going to be my answer to the value of the different types of villain.
Yes.
I would say that a villain in itself, it represents a lot of the problems and issues with society. And then so that villain especially, a good villain forces your hero to deal with some of those issues. Now, if you look at, say, what do I have written down here? If you look at, say, the Golden Age, where villains were kind of black and white, and you gotta look at some of the things that were happening sort of from the 30s to the 50s. You have World War II. You have the Great Depression. What else did I have here? There was another good one in there. Great Depression. Oh, no, that's definitely that's not it. But anyway, World War II, Great Depression, things of that nature. So you have a very I don't want to say blanket, but you kind of know that these things are bad. You know that you know what your enemy is. So I think that's how you get that sort of that black and white. Okay, it's Hitler. We know Hitler is bad. Let's put him on the screen. Let's have Captain America. Let's put him on the comic page. Let's have Captain America punch him. You know, let's and it's very. Also, I have an interesting comparison about the Golden Age villains. So I'm gonna put a pin on that, but also then let's jump to, say, the Silver Age. What you have going on there? You have the Civil Rights Movement. You have Watergate scandal, Voting Rights Act of 1965, and then that was sort of when you saw a shift of complexity in villains. And also, especially with a lot of, you saw this especially in movies, there was sort of a shift in distrust in structures. Yeah. And sort of and that's very much so speaking to a lot of the things that I mentioned in there, and those sort of those kind of villains force our heroes to sort of look at those structures and look at those problems and have to react to that. Even pushing forward to the Killmonger. Before that, T'Challa, he never looked at any of these things. He never looked at what was going on with Black Americans. It was Wakanda was so much sanctioned off, and a lot of people have gone as far as to call T'Challa a conservative. But anyway, because they have a wall built. But
he's very conservative in a lot of comic runs, like most of them, if not.
Absolutely.
Oh, dude, wait till you read about the what's the circle group, the Illuminati.
The Illuminati in the comics,
dude, he's like so evil.
What? That's why I was like. That's why I was like. Imagine sorry, side tangent, but sorry.
Side tangent.
Yeah, like I was like, imagine Spider-Man with knowledge of like the Illuminati as an older person, because he's a smart person in a thing, and just like having to come to grips with like the systemic things as Spider-Man in the character. I'm like, writing wise, he can do a lot as an older
Especially
person.
As a person who's on the street level, this is what I.
That's what I'm saying.
NYC and Marvel is one of the best storytelling places ever. You got Fantastic Four, you have Tony Stark
Yep.
Industries, you have Spider-Man Uptown. One of the greatest locations ever written. So you have all these things going on. You got Daredevil in Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah.
It's so much going on, but they all experience different things.
We just need Marvel to show love and give us a Bronx superhero.
I was saying that I've been as a resident of the Bronx, they definitely need to, because there's so much systemically, and just to kind of piggyback what you were saying between the different ages and eras, it's also a coinciding of who was telling the stories at the specific time.
Absolutely.
Like the amount of voices that became able to be comic book artists, or people that came to love these characters at different times in history. I mean, you had Stan Lee writing for Fantastic Four in the beginning as he was like a younger person and everything, but like look at like what that meant when, you know, when he's younger trying to create Spider-Man, they're trying to discard him, to, you know, a Miles Morales having went from an Ultimate Universe character to entering into the mainline series just from popularity, to having black writers actually write his stories for him. And it's just like the amount of progression between that, it speaks to the nature of the hero and the nature of the villains that came about, because I mean the intricacies between the relationship between a Miles Morales character versus a Prowler character is a depth that you can't, and speaks to a specific set of reality, kind of like in the street level, but you know, the different type of street level that justifies his existence as a character in general.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna finish my point. Is that, but yeah, without Killmonger, T'Challa would have never. Especially the fact that Killmonger was created by his father. You know, he never would have, or I can't say never, but there was a very low chance of him looking at the world and acknowledging those problems, and making an effort to go beyond the borders of Wakanda to make the world better.
Very interesting. And also for the movie too, the movie is Shakespearean because it take like a lot of the media that we get from like the postmodern era, from like the era where the first nuclear bomb was dropped to present.
Yes.
Right? A lot of the media that we talk, comics in its modern iteration pretty much speaks to that reality. They break it up into the like the eras that you're saying, but it's like when you first read comics, you just see like, oh, how do we deal with this toxic goo? A lot of it is a response to like nuclear age problems and going forward. And that's like the American mythology of being like the first, the one in front, the one leading the pack in like the world stage level in terms of the ways in which it's mythologized in comics. But to bring it back to what I was saying before, just the way in which it's like a postmodern reality.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because like the the hippie movement was pivoting off of like the 1860s.
Golden Age 70s.
Yes, Golden Age 70s, right? But that was a nostalgic type of period from how people in the 1870s or 1860s used to have art and stuff like that. And so we have like these type of narratives that kind of transition from culture to culture to culture.
You know, it's crazy.
And
I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
But one of the greatest stories from the 70s that you just reminded me of was the Green Lantern X Green Arrow collab.
Yeah.
Where his Green Arrow's partner Archie, I forget his name, whatever, Red Robin, whatever the hell, he shoots up heroin. And
Yeah.
like they catch him, and it's like, wow, it's such a defining moment. It was one of the most important stories that I think came out right before they removed or after they removed the Comics Code Authority.
Yeah.
And it was just one of the ones that you could not tell at the time. It was like, wow.
Wow, it was like, yeah, they're speaking to like actual problems. And it's just like, it's really cool because comics in itself is an intellectual medium. And I feel like with the ushering in of like comic book movies, people are taking it as such and just like breaking it down. And it's just a popularity. It's just like, this deserves dissection. But yeah, when you look at Killmonger, it's really just the story of, I forgot what the name of it. I'm gonna pull up the Shakespeare story, but it's the same type of story as The Lion King. I know which one. It's the same, but if you look at Lion King and you look at
Was it Hamlet?
I believe it's Hamlet. But if you look at Lion King and Black Panther, they use the same Shakespearean type of storytelling where you have one brothers in arms on the opposite side, and it's a reflection of the storytelling to kind of push the villain and the hero within that type of archetype. So it's very interesting that, you know, something that was written in like the 1700s is very like
still
apt.
relevant today.
Yeah, very apt and very relevant to the needs of today.
And the best heroes are the ageless ones. They don't change masks and they don't change personalities. They are ideas.
Yes.
So, to you, Steven, who is your favorite supervillain of all time?
Oh, fuck, that's a big question.
Of all time.
I mean,
I could give you mine first. If you
yeah.
Go for it.
You go
So,
for it.
when I was younger, I remember I was 13, 14. I wasn't a big comics fan. I used to watch Comics Explains, Comics Historian
Yes.
on YouTube. You know,
Rest in
love
peace.
them. Rest in peace, Comic Story. I was a big fan. And I remember like being extremely young, and I was like, oh man, one of my friends, he was like, yo, you should read this one. He pulls out God Loves, Man Kills. I was not ready. If you don't know what that is.
Which one?
God Loves, Man Kills is an X-Men story. It starts off with these two black kids. And I forget the name of the group, but I'm going to call them Martians. We're going to call them the Martians. Why not? They're Martians, and they've run up on these two black kids while they're in the playground, and they shoot them to death.
Wow.
Yep, like that's just the start of the story. They string them up and call them muties, like literally put a tag on them.
Wow.
And it's an allegory for race, obviously. But
Yeah.
Magneto finds them, and he swears like, yo, whoever did this is gonna get got. And it was one of the best stories to ever happen. And it's perfect how it's a beautiful start to the story. So like the first 8 pages, beautiful. And this is what I love Magneto about, because you were forced to watch one tragedy. He's the last guy to let another one happen. So
Yeah.
it's so, if anything leans in toward the sector of the Holocaust, or even moves to it, it's like he's on it. He's like, I've seen this before. They start moving us in camps for our own good. They start watching our diet, started locking us up inside of cages, separating us, and then this is how it works, and they start to define you as subhuman. They start to tell you, hey, keep an eye out for these people in your neighborhood. Allegory for race, and allegory for class, and allegory.
Yeah, X-Men is probably like the most the best series to really attack that, and it also on the meta level, like it was created in like what, the 80s or 90s and stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's like when these the 80s, and so like these topics are really kind of played or kind of baked into the nature of the team, of the characters, and just I guess we could kind of restructure like the conversation between like how can we look at like Professor Xavier and how does Magneto push Professor Xavier as like a character in just general, and I'll kind of leave that open to like the table.
We gotta remember. I'm sorry to reflect. I want to get to this guy Trent real quick in a second, but we gotta remember in one of the '90s story. I forget the name of it, but they work together in Onslaught. Professor Xavier is mind controlled, and he puts on Magneto's armor, and he gives in to Magneto's philosophy. So even then, there are cracks in his barrier, Professor X's.
Yeah. Where
he does think, maybe this guy is right. Maybe it's over. Maybe we have to. And that's what it is. A beautiful story. It's a beautiful story. But yeah, you've probably seen Onslaught before. But go ahead, Trent.
Yeah, I've seen Onslaught before. No. I was going to say Magneto and Xavier are two sides of the same coin. Once again, that what we talked about earlier, that separation of hero and villain. Yeah. It's, same principles, same ideas, same goal to an extent.
Yes.
Because Magneto's like, yo, let's get rid of them. Fuck them all. But no, it's just how you go about it. And I think it's unfortunate that, Magneto, he, in his lifetime, he's just been pushed just a little bit further than Charles Xavier. He's a Holocaust survivor. So he's seen evil firsthand, and he is at his limit when it comes to people persecuting mutants. Two sides of the same coin. That's their relationship. They offer a view into what it's like on the other side to each other, I think. Where would I be if I was a little more peaceful, or where would I be if I took it that further step.
Do the ends justify the means, and do the means justify the ends?
I think that's the question that's supposed to be constantly asked.
Yeah.
For which side?
No,
Because I mean, it's a tough one because
It's interesting because it's just like how for the heroes, like how much evil do you have to see until you either turn or you triumph, and for the villain, it's like how much evil are you going to pervade until you change your ways, or are you just going to let the evil that you've seen be the factor that determines who you are as a person?
That reminds me of that that pretty famous quote or saying that goes around that people these days kind of meme about, but it really does make you think. And the phrase goes, "You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain."
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's a good thing. I think the kind of main thing that I juggle with that question a lot in terms of like just life, like how you may see somebody that has like an idea maker trying to do this, like, and how that can lead to like a corruption of like a person, and not even in the superhero world, but just in the world of just like, oh yeah, like let's say for instance Elon Musk. Oh wow, we loved that. We loved how this person was doing this, that, and the third. But then when you really evaluate it and you just keep on letting power, it's just like power always corrupts, and so you see portions where it's just like, all right, I'm gonna get rid of these things, but it kind of goes into what you're saying. So when I say get rid of these things, I'm talking about like the ways in which he uses the Doge department and the advisory committee to get rid of the executive branch. I know I'll date the podcast, but speaking to the current. But it's more so to the point of what I was watching a political theorist say. He was talking about the American kind of nature of wanting to be left alone as like the prime driver of this. And so it kind of reflects on like Hulk as like a kind of hero, and how that turns into like what is Hulk's kind of trauma and ability as a character, as he's not really seen as hero or villain, but kind of just exists as both as like not really an anti-hero. He just exists. He exists as a creature of things.
One of the most beautiful told story, the Incredible Hulk, back in 2003, 2004. I can't remember it.
What?
Not the one with Mark Ruffalo, the other one, the other guy.
That was
Edward Norton.
Norton, yes. Yeah. That story is so great. I feel like it represents the character in the film medium in such a great way. Because not only do you find that this man, he has a demon inside of him, but he also he chooses not to feed into it, and it's capable of so much destruction. He's always on a limit. He's always on a time barrier, because we all crash. We all mentally become taxed and told.
We all have limits.
And his are just more destructive than ours. And I think it's a beautiful manifestation of how in society, like how we said crashing out last time.
Like crashing out.
How we crashing out.
But yeah, I just think like, because he was really inspired by that kind of, like I was saying, like a lot of last era's literature kind of informs a lot of the American mythology. So a lot of like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Yes.
Kind of like the flip-flopping between the dualistic nature of a person and the good and evil and the wolfy feed type of mentality. Between like the wolfy feed being like an indigenous man's tale of, you have two wolves, one of good and one of bad, and really it's the one that you foster, the one that you feed is the one that speaks to who you are as a person. And it's just like that also informs the ways in which we tell stories with heroes and villains too. And it's just like, which wolf have they feed? How have they trained this wolf to do this type of thing? How does this kind of manifest as a character in general? And it's like, it's very interesting to see the different lines and the different ways in which writers use these characters to tell a different story. Because let's say, for instance, you go to the Green Goblin and how the Green Goblin is used. So he's like an agent of chaos in a lot of early works.
Yes.
But it's just like reevaluating the agent of chaos. So when you have a movie like Far From Home, and it's like talking about the rehabilitation of villains, and that's like the main kind of story focus of like Spider-Man trying to actually make a difference, rehabilitate his villains, actually take the critiques that we love all at Batman, like why are you beating up these villains if you're not systemically making these changes, and really putting it to the driver of Spider-Man as a character. And it's just like he ends up having to kill Green Goblin at the end. And it's just like, well, not really kill him, but
having to hold back.
Having to hold back and
having to rehabilitate himself because he
Yeah.
was about to go.
Yeah.
and exactly. And it's just like reaching that critical limit, but still not crossing that threshold. And it's just like, you know, Green Goblin wasn't able to be rehabilitated. So it's just like some nature of evil is still pervasive. Like all the other heroes were able to, but just reevaluating the ages of chaos, and maybe chaos is inherent to every system. And it's just like, all right, if I know that that's the case, then what sacrifices am I willing to take? And that's like another angle.
What's the limit?
What's the limit?
What is, and that's why I was just questioning myself earlier today. I was like, to what effort is change? Like, to what limit is your own survival worthy of great change?
Yeah.
How much do you depend on yourself and your own maybe livelihood, job, regardless, your survival? How much does that outweigh the actual change we bring into the world?
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'm not a crazy person, but I'm like, dude, what if I just start like living that way? You know, because I used to
one bad day away from that.
Yeah.
You know what I
Go
mean?
ahead.
Like, what if I start living like, every day I gotta bring some change into the world, but like on some positive, real Chance the Rapper stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I had to say Chance the Rapper because he's Christian. But I used to work at a soup kitchen for a little bit, and I was like, why haven't I went back? Why haven't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, why am I scrolling Instagram right now? And this is also a guilt thing, a little bit, but it's like, why not bring more good into the world? Why not do that? Just, it feels like the bare minimum sometimes.
Yeah.
And some of the best New York stories that also show the bare minimum is Daredevil.
Daredevil's
if
an
you guys
amazing
want a quick
character, too.
synopsis, was a kid. I don't know why those containers were not filled. He gets hit with radioactive
Container. Yeah, they never give it. He was just hit with
He was just hit with it, and he goes blind. He becomes a lawyer known as Matt Murdock. But
I'm excited for
my
the show.
favorite, Born Again is such a great comic. I think you should read it. Though.
I'm so
that
excited.
panel when he's sitting there inside of the taxi. Spoilers, but dude, you're gonna see it. They better animate. They better
Bring it to the
replicate
live action.
Yes, he's sitting in the taxi. They drive him off the pier, and he's sitting at the bottom of the pier like the taxi cab. He opens up his eyes and he slims out, just like angry at Kingpin, which is one of the greater villains in Marvel Comics.
Yeah.
Kingpin is a reflection of how the law could be used and manipulated by great men. Matt Murdock is a lawyer. He defends the innocent. He protects people.
Yeah.
And even though he goes out at night and beats up people with batons and sticks,
Yeah.
he tries his best. He's a man of God. He's a Christian. He puts people first. Versus Kingpin, he uses the law against it. He's a mafioso, a bad man, a mobster. He uses all his power, but he keeps people in check. Even though he's evil, look what I've done for the community. Especially in recent ones where he works with the X-Men. He's like, look what I've done for your community. Look what I've done for you guys. Look what I've done for everybody.
And he's like, it's just the best thing about Kingpin and the writing that they do is that in every system you have power brokers, places where power tends to accumulate.
Yes.
And it's like you can't necessarily get rid of that as your first step. You can't get rid of like the main structural support when trying to rework how a building works. You're just going to cause a collapse.
Rehabilitation.
And it's just like, exactly. And it's just like a measure, because even in the Spider-Man games, they try to take Kingpin out, and then you had new heroes trying to fill the void. And that speaks, and it's just like, it speaks to the nature of, the original thing that we're talking about with like the golden era, with, heroes and villains, one being an agent of order and one being an agent of chaos. And as we go through time, it speaks to the varying complexities of what that means, in the sense that, like you were saying, Daredevil and Kingpin, they're both agents of the law and lawfulness. But it's just like, at what ends and in what ways do the two power dynamics butt heads? And it's just like, one is a power broker that's just trying to keep in check while self-enriching, while one is trying to, actually get to the source of crime. One is trying to actually prevent these things, and then sometimes going above the law. And, the nature of superheroes and villains is that, some of them, or most superheroes, exist as a vigilante.
Yes.
And the nature of vigilantism is like, I think, a huge kind of like story point as we go forward in the kind of aging of comics and heroes and villains, because now we live in a world where, let's say you have a Luigi Mangione,
Yes.
and the way in which that vigilantism facilitates and creates itself versus the vigilantism of a Daredevil or something like that, and the veneration of a hero, and what does that mean for somebody that is not really like his same type of Daredevil Kingpin situation, just in a real world scenario.
And to relate that to, let's move from the Golden Age to the Silver Age, to one of the greater Daredevil villains, Punisher.
Yeah.
Who has been done justice in this show.
That show was amazing.
Beautiful show. Frank Castle is a man of no second chances. He doesn't get any. He goes to prison, comes out, his family's killed.
Yeah.
Bomb. Boom. That's it. No second chances. And he comes out, and even in the show, they quote this from the comics. He says to Daredevil, "You hit them, and they get back up. I hit them, and they stay down." It's how they approach criminals.
I sent you that clip.
Yeah.
No, you watch the show. Watch Daredevil. Watch Punisher, please. It's on Netflix.
Those were the best two shows out of the whole
Like,
series.
It's actually on Disney Plus now.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Not that we're
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
money from any of them, but
no,
if they
no.
want to
Soon,
send some
soon,
bucks
soon.
our way, please.
please.
For a sponsor? Ooh.
Yeah.
But yeah, moving back to the Silver Age, Punisher was at first a Spider-Man villain.
A lot of
that's
Daredevil's rogue gallery actually comes from Spider-Man, and is just trying to take on a more realistic take of it, which is really like Kingpin was originally like was Spider-Man's villain.
Yeah.
And then he just meant that's why I love that Spider-Man and Daredevil are getting more collaboration spotlight, because they're both very, very similar and very distinct, and I like that for the hero writing and the villain writing for both their shared rogues gallery. It takes aspects of the hero and just brings it to its logical conclusion. Where does this vigilantism comes from? Takes it to its logical conclusion, and it becomes a character, and it's just like, all right, that becomes Punisher, right?
Yes.
And it's just like, okay, where does this kind of like power broker and kind of accumulation of power, kind of, the power with great power comes great responsibility. And even though it wasn't said by Uncle Ben in the comic, just like that little blurb, and that facilitates into a Kingpin type of character, and how does that kind of fester. And it's just very interesting that while we're talking about like the nature of villains, that like we said before, it's not like the villain really kind of is born out of nothing. It's like it stems from the character or from the system itself.
Yes. So Steven, back to you. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. You're good.
But Steven, I'll let you rock with it for a few. I'm not gonna let you sleep. Who is your greatest supervillain of all time, and how do you feel like they connect to this?
Yeah.
So I only recently got into comics. I was never really super into them, but I kind of...
Once again, we don't have to stick to, comics. You can pull from whatever medium you want.
But also kind of like saying like I'm finally into comics a little bit. I just started reading Green Lantern because he's my favorite DC hero, and I'm really digging it so far. Not my favorite villain, but Sinestro is amazing as a character. Love him.
Yeah.
But from like a raw aura standpoint, and even though I haven't we haven't really seen much of him in the most recent MCU run yet, but I'm very excited for it. But like in other media that I've seen him in, and it's already been mentioned, Doctor Doom, man. Doctor Doom is just like the epitome. Like when you think of Thanos, you think of like, that cataclysmic endgame and all that happened, but like even the mention of Doctor Doom like sends like shivers down your spine because of like what he's done, what he is going to be bringing to the MCU when he's finally introduced.
Yeah.
So I think he is like top tier super villain for me.
Yeah.
In that regard.
And how do you feel like he has changed over time?
Yeah, he's been an amazing character. Aside from like the 2 movie renditions where he's like really bad, like every other rendition of him has been amazing. Phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Most of my knowledge of him does come from the crappy movies. Well, the first one, which
The first one was pretty decent. Yeah.
it was also it wasn't bad. And I mean, except for the end where they like beat him by making him hot and then cold again. That was kind of stupid.
Yeah, that was
in my opinion. That was
Lord mercy.
That's how I beat my villains. I make them hot, then I make them cold.
Like,
I give him
turn
some
it off
ice.
and on again.
I give him that shock sponsorship.
Yeah.
That little bit of icy hot. Call it a day. I lost another sponsor for us. Dave.
But another amazing villain in the MCU that I love was Ultron.
Ultron was
Fire,
amazing too.
man.
Oh my god!
yeah.
In the movies, Ultron was great, but like there was also my favorite moment for Ultron actually didn't not come in one of the mainstream movies. It came in the What If series, and that was when it was the What If situation where Thanos won and took over everything and it was all copacetic. He's standing there. He's like, all the Avengers are dead. He's taken over the world or the universe or whatever, and he's just standing there. And then like a portal opens up and Vision steps through, and Thanos turns him and is like raises the gauntlet, and then literally Vision just slices him in half. And then fades into Ultron, and then Ultron grabs the gauntlet and the Infinity Stones and starts going crazy.
Because Vision was originally a embodiment from
Yeah.
Ultron.
And like that moment,
He wanted
even
to
though
be
it was a what
human.
if, that was freaking crazy. Man.
What If is like, as far as like favorite MCU shows, that's my favorite MCU show. That I've been asking for a What If. Well, I wanted a movie originally, but I'll take a show in animated form because when I saw the first Avengers movie, I was like, "Yo, we need a What If," because on Tangent Time, so like there used to be this website called Tumblr.
Yeah,
someone
it's
from-
still around.
Shout out
Still
to-
around?
yeah, I still use it. There's some secret projects out there if y'all can ever find it. You can't though.
Damn.
Yeah, that's where they first started like race and gender swapping the Avengers because the Avengers was fucking huge, and I was like, that's a very great basis for what if because they were using like actual actors and they were just like placing them where all these male actors were, and I was like, that's a great basis for the what if series. What if you take this actor, you take this woman, or you take this black person and switch them out, because I mean it's all essentially it's all the same, just the flavor's a little different, because we are all the same. But anyway, that's it. I'm done with that tangent.
No, but that's fun. I mean, they did something similar with like, what if Penny Parker was? I mean, not Penny Parker. Penny Parker's Spider-Man.
Yes.
What's Captain America's love interest? I forgot her name.
Oh, Peggy Carter.
Peggy Carter. Yeah.
Sounds
Peggy.
similar to Penny Parker. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, my fault. I was thinking about the wrong thing.
Say them both 5 times fast. You can.
Yeah, but like for her, they definitely made her in the What If series. I remember it.
Yeah. What if she actually
She's been
became?
getting a little bit of a big push. She was in
She was in Multiverse of Madness.
She was in Multiverse of Madness,
Yeah.
and she got cut in half, unfortunately.
No,
man.
oh wait, yeah, she did get cut in half. That was
She
her.
got cut
Spoilers.
in half.
I mean that
on, it's
Multiverse
been
of
like
Madness
3 years.
scene was so whack. I was just like, I liked it for the jokes, but it just had too much Deadpoolism. What felt like the earned type of like nature of that. I understand. I like Sam Raimi as an artist though,
Yes.
so I'm like, I love the end part of the scene. Like it created like genuine horror and fear, but it was just like. It was just some of it was just bad writing from just carryover projects.
I didn't like how that battle with Wanda and the Illuminati went
When it
down.
ended,
Just how it went down, because like my biggest thing was like, first of all, you have Mr. Fantastic give away the secret of his like best fighter immediately. He's like,
Yes.
Black Bolt can kill you with a scream or whatever,
Yeah.
and Wanda's just like, all right, cool, no mouth. And then like this dude who has presumably the fortification of like a boulder to not ever speak because he knows like
yes.
the ramifications of that, panics immediately and kills himself with his own voice.
Yeah,
And
it was just like writing
didn't
like
make
the
sense.
worst.
It didn't make
characters,
sense
In
at
the
all.
comics, he literally grabs a knife, cuts his own mouth open. When people try to do that, like
Yeah,
Yeah.
like he's known
Black
for
Bolt
like
is-
being able to do because he knows that that's his like main weakness.
he's crazy. Like a lot of that group, I forget their name, but they're crazy.
I know what you're talking
The
about.
Inhumans.
The Inhumans.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I love. I was high off of edible watching that film.
That's funny. That's funny. That's funny as hell.
One of the best things I remember from Sam Raimi's his the direction he was trying to take it.
It was shot
her
really well, too.
Crawling out of, I don't know if it's a portal or painting, but she's like her body's twisting.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it was genuine
Wow.
fear, but
There
it was
were
just,
moments that were pretty scary in the
no,
movie. I'm
there
not
were,
gonna lie.
Sam Raimi is good at that. Like if you rewatch Spider-Man 2, the arms were very, very scary. Like the way that they shot them, the way that they did the puppetry for them, amazing.
Oh, you're talking about Doc Ock?
Yeah, like
Yeah,
that, like the
fire
way,
from them.
just like in retrospect. But the only thing, it was just like, it goes back to just the thing that you were critiquing before with like the MCU, with like, if you watch WandaVision, some of the character decisions didn't make sense with the
Yes.
journey. Like they could have told the same story, but certain key moments that they based the whole plot around just didn't make sense for the character having went through that journey. And it goes back to what you're saying about the hero journey. Like if you're going to go back to the status quo, it's not the same status quo that you start with. Like it's a new status quo, and so you have to change the fulcrum or the basis in which the hero has to resort to villainy or has a momentary lapse into that. And it was just like, it made no sense for Wanda to really reach that, aside from like, yes, the motivations were there, but it was just like the ways in which it was acted out. It was, the how was like a missing question.
No, especially her taking captive of a whole town. That was a
Yeah, it was like taking captive of a whole town, but you just did the WandaVision thing. Like you just had it, like, okay, the whole town. But Wanda is also like a very interesting character because she stems from X-Men origin. So the way that they brought her in the first time was very interesting and new. So they were still working out
with
the kinks.
Claw, yes.
Yeah. It was like the new type of kinks, but it was just like, damn.
Yeah, it's
a
unfortunate.
missed opportunity.
I see you have something pulled up there, Trent. What is that?
What's up? Oh no, this was I was thinking about a different moment with the villain, but we can get into it.
Yeah, I'm ready.
We can
Yeah.
get into it.
I'm ready.
No, I was just gonna talk about my. So I have like two sort of responses to your question.
Yeah.
So my favorite, I would say, I don't necessarily have a favorite
Villain,
all-time supervillain, but one of my favorite renditions of in the MCU of them making me care for a villain I really had that really wasn't on my radar before was Spider-Man: Homecoming and the Vulture. If you haven't seen it, he is essentially the Vulture is a he's a working man, you know, middle class. He runs a construction crew. It says crew essentially. They're when he starts his villain arc, they're cleaning up after the Battle of New York, and then of course the big guys come in. I want to say they belong to Stark Industries, but a bigger company comes and just takes over everything, and so he's out of a job, and so the guy's got to make ends meet. So he kind of goes into selling a lot of the things that they found and couldn't discard a lot of alien technology on the black market.
Yes.
He's not necessarily an evil guy, but he's just trying to make a living for his family.
Yeah.
Very street villain, very Spider-Man. And he ends up, if you haven't seen it, he ends up having a connection to Spider-Man that's done fucking beautiful.
Oh yeah, when you
And
first
I
seen that
love it.
it was amazing.
I was like, gasp!
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
But no, there's another movie. It might be a little lesser known. Because I was thinking about this and I was like, what's one time very early on in, say, a movie where I've had an instant guttural reaction like, I hate this person.
Oh.
And there's this movie called this Japanese movie called 13 Assassins. I don't know if anybody in here has ever seen it.
I have not.
No. So essentially, they had you have this evil lord who's wreaking havoc in Japan, and these 13 samurai are enlisted to take him down. So if you watch the opening scene of the movie, like it's so heartbreaking, and it's so simple. You see the Lord, and this guy's like telling this story of how they were in the same vicinity as his the guy who's telling the story. The Lord was in the same vicinity as his son and his newly married wife. The Lord, I don't want to say his name because I'm going to butcher it. Matsudara. Something anyway, we'll just stick with Lord M.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Lord
anyway,
M.
he comes across the newly married woman, and he's like essentially he's like, I want her.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
he grabs her by the hair, he takes her in the back,
What?
and he rapes her. Yeah.
Wow.
And he like the husband comes in and you see the Lord just sitting there very casual, and he refers to her as a monkey, and he was like, yeah, the women in this region are very much like monkeys.
That's crazy.
They scratch a lot. And then so the husband goes to comfort her. Immediately he just stabs the husband with a sword, treats it like it's nothing. It's like, oh, you're a monkey too. And like the way he's disrespecting these people and treating human life, it like really makes you
subhuman.
Yeah, it really makes you like, I hate this motherfucker. And then there's another scene where you see the aftermath of something else he's done to a woman, which I won't spoil it. You got to see it. It was like, yo, it's over. This guy has to go. It's like, I don't care who you get, but I'm with him. Let's get it. Like that was.
One
what's
of
up?
the okay.
I thought you were about to say something, but yeah, no, that was very. When I was thinking about villains, that was one of. That was that 2010. I said, yeah. That was one time I was like, yeah, like that was a very great way to start a movie and to get you to hate someone. And I'm sorry, what were you about to say more?
The subhumanization of other people is one of the scariest things that you could write about.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
when done right, to make a person not feel comfortable in their own body is something that is so hard to do, regardless if it's sexual assault, it's abuse, if it's something just as simple as ignoring them sometimes.
Absolutely.
Just not even giving them the peace of mind. It's something that, when done right, could really just bring a story and make it almost personal, because we all have felt ignored, we all have felt unseen before. Yeah. And it's something that I feel like is done great in The Dark Knight Returns. One of my greatest Joker stories of all time. I'm sorry to bring the segue.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Steven, what is your favorite Joker story before I go in?
Oh my God, I don't even know. I don't know. I was never.
Great.
Okay, listen. This is going to be a possibly controversial opinion.
Yes.
Probably not controversial opinion. Like I said, I haven't read comics up until very recently. Mm-hmm. I cannot stand the DC movies.
Oh no, the film is not. Here's what it is. For me personally, Heath Ledger set such a high bar. Unfortunately, that will never be surpassed, and people cannot let go. He is one of the best artists. I mean, like, not even an actor, an artist to ever live, and he'll never the way he set up the acting and the way the film is almost written. It's like it was made to cater to him. Almost.
Yeah.
His level of expertise.
He was great in that movie. Like that, I guess that if I had to pick one of the greatest Jokers that I didn't manage to see, would definitely be that one. But in regards to just how the DC universe went about doing their movies, I just think they did it in the exact Marvel. Clear-cut plan.
Yes.
Phase 1, boom. Phase 2, boom. Mm-hmm. Phase 3, boom. Clear-cut, great, love it.
That's why they're suffering right now. They have no plan.
DC was like, we got Batman, we got Superman. We're going to go with those as long as we can. Then we're going to go throw everything else in a blender, turn the lights off, and hope shit doesn't fly everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the thing with the cinematics, that it was just very cash grabby, because everybody was just like, oh yeah, let's do this. And I kind of wanted to, speak to what makes a badly written villain. Ooh. I feel like that's a very good question.
Modern Joker. I'm going to bring it back to Joker. I love The Dark Knight Returns. It's one of the best stories ever written. It's probably got me into comics. It's an older Joker.
Epitome of Agent of Chaos.
He's older. He's just come out of, now he was in Arkham for a long time. And he comes out, he's sitting on his talk show. They think he's rehabilitated. Yeah. They think. And as soon as he sits down, he says, "I'm gonna kill everybody in this room." Gas is the whole room, and he kills everybody. And at the end of the story, him and Bruce Wayne is in the tunnel of dark. Bruce Wayne has to put the suit back on because he's older, and he snaps his own neck. Making it look like Batman killed him. So now, not only did he cause the end of Batman, but he caused it in a way to where he's the new villain. He can never return. Yeah.
And it's just I like that Joker is the epitome. Joker and Green Goblin, for both respective, I guess, comic book houses, represent the purest kind of distillation of Agent of Chaos. And what does that mean for a character? So it's just finding new ways to just kind of pervade in be just the antithesis, more so Joker than Goblin. But how to be the antithesis of what it symbolizes to even be a hero in this type of
What
world.
is evil? What do we consider evil in the modern world, and what has been evil before? Now, one of the stories I would say back to Joker is the Killing Joke, where he
That one is
cripples
amazing. That
Barbara while shooting her in the waist,
Mm-hmm.
and he kidnaps what's his name? Commissioner Jim Gordon. Yes,
that
Jim
one was
Gordon, and he tries to push him over his limit. And I'll never forget when he opens up and he's talking to the man to buy the old carnival, and he's like, "Oh, well, why would you want to buy this rusty dump? It's dirty. It's horrible." He's like, "No, I see something in here." And you just his mind work. He's like, "Oh, I could make somebody snap in here."
yeah.
Yeah.
It was just the way I think the Killing Joke is probably one of the best. I know it's still like it's very cliche to say like it's one of the best ones, but it really shows like the depravity of like the ways in which Joker would. I think Joker works best when he's trying to prove a point and does it by any means.
Yes.
And like that's when he's written to the best. Like even in The Dark Knight, it wasn't really like it was just a means to just be the foil to Batman. And what that was a whole fulcrum of like the film. Like he didn't even need the money.
Yes.
Like he burns
He
the
burns
money.
the money.
He burns
Yes.
the money stack and is like, I'm just here just to cause antagonism. And it's like same with the Killing Joke. It was just like, how can I make Batman see that, you know, it really only takes one day. And so he kidnaps Commissioner Gordon's daughter, who turns into Oracle as a result, shoots her.
Yes.
Sadly, like the SAs her and just like really pushes Jim Gordon to like the really end. And they leave the panel at the point where you can't even tell if Batman really kills him or not.
He laughs so scary.
And it just leaves a really haunting type of feeling even just talking about it. And it's just like, what is the nature of evil? How does that kind of pervade as like a villain, and how does that suit the storytelling of the stories that you try to tell?
In the modern day, we had a story that came out recently. I'm not gonna say 2 to 3 years ago, but they actually had unwritten it out the canon. That's how bad it was.
Wow.
Where they get all 3 of the Jokers from the Golden Age to the Bronze Age to the Modern Age, where the Modern Age one is more known for cutting off his face.
Yeah.
Don't get me started. I thought it was nice when it first came out, but I was like, oh no, not really.
Sometimes writers go too far just to be extreme, just for the sake of being extreme.
Edgy.
Like what? Yeah,
Yeah,
just to be edgy.
It helps you stand out.
And, you know, and the thing is about being a villain. I don't feel like I don't think the modern Joker is a villain. I don't think modern Joker is evil anymore. I think he just does things.
Yeah, that's that's
the problem. There's you have to write a villain, not an impulsive psychopath.
And for me, that's to answer that question. That's what makes a bad villain. Because like, if your villain is just there to just do stuff because it's bad or because he's the bad guy, that's for me a bad villain. It's completely 2-dimensional. It's like classic light versus dark, where there's no mixture, there's no muddle, there's no like, you know, is this right, is this wrong? It's just completely flat, and that is the worst kind of villain to me.
Yeah, and I piggyback, like, even not to say that the Golden Age villains were necessarily bad, because like they weren't very intricate in thought, but they served their purpose. Like the mustache twirling man just really wanted to see like this woman die, and it was just like the depravity of that is crazy in itself, but you don't need a whole bunch of explanation.
It's
and that doesn't
honest.
make it it's honest, sometimes for the sake of being edgy, or just the nature of trying to appeal to, you know, people's worst types of imaginings of what evil is, and just try to paint it as an act and make it seem like, you know, evil is just a static thing. Evil is very dynamic, and like good, it changes and it morphs, and it tries to be the lack or corruption of what is good in a system. And so like from that point, if you don't really acknowledge that or kind of go from that standpoint, you're kind of at a loss, because then you just have characters just doing stuff just to do stuff, because it's really just a war of ideas.
Because evil is not an action; it's the stages that get you there.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that's part of it too.
Damn.
Yeah,
That was good.
Yeah, he said, I'm coming back prepared. I am ready for this.
This
one.
man said he was nervous.
Yeah. Now you ate this whole. Can we get a will hog? That should eating this shit up.
Facts.
Oh man. What were you gonna say?
No. Go ahead.
Oh, I was
Okay,
just
cool.
yeah, no, I was just loving on Wilhelm. My fault. Wilhelm is like that extra scream in the middle of it. It's just this one dude that says, ah.
He's the unseen member.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of the unseen, I
Ooh.
think that would be like an amazing title for the episode. But also an awesome Mad Lib album. And the unseen in general, I think that from that point you can kind of distill where heroes and villains kind of stem from.
Yes.
From that point of like being the unseen. And that's like where they kind of stem from. And somebody said it earlier, but I wanted to bring it up. But the unseen, or just the lack of, inspires both the hero and the villain in a lot of ways. And it's just like, that's why they're two sides of the same coin. And when you acknowledge that, and as we kind of push narrative forward, what does it mean to be unseen? Or is the unseen even something that can't exist anymore? Like, imagine in the current where we have like issues with like surveillance capitalism, or the ways in which we're being surveilled via our phone products. Yes. Or this, is there really, what is the unseen? What is the unseen, and how does that create heroes and villains in our current environment? And how does that push the nature of narrative forward? And how do we engage with the unseen things of the medium itself? How do we make it meta-contextual? How do we deal with, maybe in the 30s it was disperspective writing, and now we acknowledge that? How do we see that part that just seems as a default and view that as the unseen and push the narrative forward? And that's why, like, I really love the ways in which, you know, mediums like comics, or the mediums like just the nature of writing, you can get to asking like the whys to things. And I think every story, the best stories ask why, and then the worst stories just do.
Yes, the demons stay in the dark because they are afraid of the light.
Yeah.
When you say, what was the word you used?
The unseen.
The unseen, do you mean the other?
It could be the other too,
Okay.
but I'd say just the unseen, like unseen just being the lack. Because let's say, for instance, you know, Peter Parker is unseen in the beginning. He's very like lowly, is a geek, is a nerd, is an outcast. And so it is a part of otherization, but it's like the quiet battles that are not necessarily portrayed via the character as they assume the hero kind of role.
The unheard.
Yeah, like the unheard, the unseen, it's just like that prefix of just like, maybe that creates that kind of otherization, but it's not just that. It's just that this is not them. This is a system-wide thing. Like, this is an archetype for him to inhabit to become a hero. So let's take even the nature of comics. Like, the nature of comics was a medium of the unseen to, you know, a lot of people just being like, oh, you're a nerd, or you're a geek, or you're this person. But then when it becomes like the highest selling commodity, selling billions and trillions of dollars of revenue for becoming the most popular products, it's now a matter of like, oh, you didn't acknowledge my existence when I didn't serve you. Now it's just like, now you acknowledge my existence because I'm popular. And it's like, what does that mean for the medium? Is that why the medium struggles now? Where are the ways in which the things are unseen now? And then you have narratives in which villains in media in general, like, if you ever seen everything everywhere all at once,
I want to so bad.
Yeah,
I have not seen it yet.
I won't spoil it, but just the nature of what it means to be unseen in that. How does that launch the main antagonist in that movie, in particular with the daughter? And how does that create villains and heroes in the same time? And it's just like, how do you follow protagonists to acknowledge the unseen?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because there is, like, although it's not as well received of a superhero movie, there is a specific one in which that kind of is the driving point of the antagonist, and that I think is it's one of the Spider-Man movies, the one with Electro, where he goes through his life and, you know, he's like unseen. He's just this guy. He's in a lab.
Spider-Man 2.
Thank you, Amazing Spider-Man 2. He's this guy in a lab. He is unassuming. He doesn't have much going on. No one pays attention to him. He's unseen. But then as soon as something goes down, that's when he finally becomes in the spotlight. And
yeah, he gets a little bit of power.
Exactly. And it's a really good look at what power can do to those kind of people. Like, when you spend so long in the dark, what is that little bit of light going to truly reveal?
It's like Plato's allegory of the cave. It's just
cave,
like
yeah.
looking at the cave, like shadows and shit. And it's just like, all right, but like when you get brought into the world, you can either retreat back to the cave or, you know,
Exactly.
evolve as a person.
Let's even take apart where his first fight was in the middle of Times Square, where all the light is, electricity,
City
ad
of Lights.
screens, City of Lights, ads,
that's perfect.
everything. All
yeah, City
this
of Lights
light,
is
he
crazy.
gets power from electricity. All this light surrounds him, yet he is still unseen. Everybody flees. It's empty.
Yeah.
It's just him and his opposite.
Yeah, and it's funny because remember Peter Parker starts from that situation, so it's just like one of the things that he doesn't really acknowledge is that, you know, we don't see it as the audience because the narrative itself kind of structures it as like, oh, this is a very two-dimensional type of argument.
Yes.
But if you really want to make it very three-dimensional, if you really were to attack Peter Parker's vigilantism, Peter Parker is very unseen still in his life at that moment. And it's just like if you push the narrative to be like there's a lot more similarities between the way that Electro deals with being unseen and the power that is assumed by Peter turning into Spider-Man, as opposed to the default power that now Electro is forced to possess at all times.
Yes.
And how you can deal with like, hey Peter, you get to hide behind the mask.
In a more competent movie.
In a more competent movie, you could have like Peter, you hide behind the mask, but I have to live like this for the rest of my life.
And not only that, but you chose to be Spider-Man. Not oh my.
Yeah, you chose this.
You chose. You had a choice. You were in the right place at the right time. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Exactly. And it's just like, speaking from like a writing standpoint, like those are the questions that really lead to good storytelling.
Yes.
Where you ask, what is the question not being asked? What is the unseen in this kind of dichotomy too?
I get you.
And that's goes back to what I was saying before. Like that's what kind of makes a bad villain, when you kind of just frame it as just like there's no meta argument, when you don't really look at the argument before the argument that's happening. Like what sets up the type of forces that oppose each other. Like if I set up this magnet, why am I even setting up this magnet to do this test?
Yes.
Why, when you ask that why, you're like almost 70% to like a good story. Like even in the narrative that you're talking about, why tell a story between the classes of like reds and blues and things of that nature? Because it speaks to real life notions of class, real life notions of race. And so when I put it in this thing, I can work out the power differences. So now I'm coming from the standpoint of now this kind of power dynamic pushes them ebbs and flows and gives me a good story.
I think that's honestly the best thing that most people don't realize about storytelling is most people read or consume media, whatever, consume stories in order to escape some type of thing. But more often than not, in their efforts to escape, they find their way back to themselves in a way that they never would have looked at before.
Yeah.
Because all storytelling is a way for us to understand ourselves.
Yes, exactly.
And that's why I love it so much, and whatever medium it consumes. And that's also like why I really take umbrage with people who, may look at a story that, they're like, oh, this is too political, this is too this is too that. You're missing the point entirely. That is what these are supposed to be. They're supposed to be an escape, but they're also supposed to be your magnifying glass into the world around you so that you can critically think about what's going on. Society could feed you, different things all this time. Eat this, buy that, look at this. But it's the stories that make you truly look into yourself that you need to pay attention to, because all that other stuff is just meant to distract.
Yeah.
And when you're distracted, you're compliant.
Yes.
And I'm getting real deep here, so I'm going to stop.
Have you ever seen They Live?
Have you seen what?
They Live?
They Live is a good one too.
Okay. All right. I'm not going to get into it because we're running out of time.
Yeah. Good movie though.
I was just, that was a very interesting point about being unseen, because that was sort of...
That was the whole fulcrum of the movie.
No. That was... no, absolutely. But it was that comment that that point that I put a pin in, it kind of touched on that a little bit. And I'm going to say this and get your thoughts, and then we're going to close off the episode.
Hey,
but
full circle.
No, so I when I was looking at, a lot of these older eras and the newer era, and specifically when I was thinking about the Dark Knight Joker, I saw sort of I saw this interesting comparison. So the biggest one of the biggest connections between the Joker and Batman in that movie, The Dark Knight, is they are two characters, and in some senses symbols that are incorruptible, and thus they are also other. Mm-hmm. They're not like everybody else. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the most interesting things about sort of the modern and the postmodern era. But even more interesting, when you go back in time to one of the earlier eras, they also use the other. Yeah. But they used it in a different way. They sort of looked at this idea of the unknown and kind of put a xenophobic twist on it. You know, like they're going back to, the Red Scare, or,
Japanese
just different,
camps.
just different things like that. Like, it was, or you have these monsters that we don't understand, Creature from the Black Lagoon, things like that. Yeah. And I thought it was really interesting to see how we use other now as opposed to how we use other then. It was just really interesting. I don't want to get you guys' thoughts on that before we close it out. The other as a villain.
I think most fears tie to the cycle of death and having finality. And I think the other and evil kind of are symbolized with that, are like very tangential to that kind of point of like, what is a threat to my self-perseverance as a thing. And it's just like, other threats. So when you grow up, you see another person, it's like, this person could help me, or this person could demolish my life. And so you have a baked in fear of the other instinctually, or just the other environment. If this is not a part of me, this environment can kill me. And so that broadens into the fear of the unknown, what else is out there. And it's also just kind of like the nature of human curiosity to want to explore too, and make more things known so you have less to worry about. And then that pervasive kind of like fear-based inclination creates a lot of problems. And it's like we're always trying to figure out ways in which, that is playing a part into our demise or playing a part into our successes in life. Like, oh yeah, we explored space, we explored the deep sea. Look at this, right? Natural curiosity towards the positive. Oh man, look at how we looked over here and we created this disease. How do we became the agent of our own chaos, our own demise? And it's kind of like the main thing about storytelling, like you were saying, is just we're just the universe kind of exploring itself and just playing out scenarios to really understand self.
I like that, man. That was great. Yeah, I love that. The universe playing with itself.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Hey, kinky universe.
I mean, if no one else has anything to add, I'm gonna close it on that because I thought that was.
Let me get one real quick.
No, get yours off. Go ahead.
We take from the past to create something new in the present, to build something great for the future. It's in a world so costly to be blind. One must always open up their eyes to perspective. These heroes are not just a lens, like Steven said, or a magnifying glass, as you said. They are a viewpoint in certain places where sometimes we'll never go or we'll never experience.
Facts.
But just please keep an open mind wherever you go.
Yeah.
That's all I ask. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mari has spoken.
Eat it up. What
any final thoughts?
I think on the subject of the other, in modern day and modern time, the other is used as like fear or scare tactics, because in modern day, what the agenda that is trying to be pushed by so many people is this other version of this unknown version of like, oh, we don't know what these trans people are doing. We don't know what this country is doing. And it's this way of trying to keep everybody scared.
Fear-based politics.
Exactly. Yes. And I think the more attention we bring to it, the more we try to bring that other into the light and learn from it, the more connected and informed we can be as a society. Because the more something is kept in the dark, in the dark, the more it's gonna coalesce and writhe and build until this big bad thing. Like, an idea like that isn't scary until it gets fed and you feed it by crap, I lost my train of thought.
No, you're
No, you're good. You're good.
And you feed it by by giving into it. And so the best thing you can do is peer in and try to take that little bit of step into, what if this other thing isn't what everybody else is saying?
Yes.
And just by being inquisitive, but just by being introspective, just by setting that little tiny bit of light into that pool of darkness, you might not see that pool goes as deep as you're told.
Yeah.
Hey,
Ooh, to piggyback off of that, I will say that I heard this thing, and it talks about how nostalgia and fascism are intertwined.
Damn.
And it's just like, nostalgia, if you know about it, it can happen for times that you experience and times that have never happened. And so with the way in which we write and tell stories, it's very interesting to look at the rise of authoritarianism across the globe and look and ask, what is the unseen detriment of nostalgia? And that's, yeah.
All right, I'm not going to add up.
And to add on to that.
Yo, shout outs, thank yous.
Shout outs.
We're gonna start with Mars, since he's been firing.
I appreciate
this
you guys
episode.
having me on here. I feel like I did great today. I feel like I did great.
Pat myself on the back. Episode of the decade.
That shit was fire.
But I'm gonna leave this one thinking: is the other a perspective, or is it a idea that is unseen?
Ooh.
How's that a thank you?
I think it could be both.
I think it could be both. Hey,
Yo,
Steven?
part two.
Maybe. These things always end up being more than they really are.
Always.
Like
Always.
you
That's
said.
the nature of the show. But I'm sorry. But no. Yeah. Shout outs. Thank you.
shout outs.
That's a thank you. Guys.
thank you.
Appreciate you having me on.
You say thinking that I'm not supposed to be here.
Yes, thank you to Trent and Sage for bringing me back again.
Yeah, it's always
this is
welcome.
great. Love it. And
this is your third time,
Oh
man.
yeah, third time,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, two-parter and then this. And of course, as always, thank you to my amazing wife at home right now who brought baked goods for everybody.
I'm excited.
So yeah, we can't eat them in here, but afterwards.
Studio rules.
And my dog Hubble, I love him, and I will give him a lunch pets when I get home.
That's such an amazing name. Thank yous. Thank you, good nature souls. Exist altruistic. That's all I'm gonna say.
Thank you all, everyone who's in attendance. And thank you, Derek, who was not on mic for this episode.
Yeah, we're here for live.
Today's episode was recorded in front of a live studio audience.
Yes.
One.
Thank you, Stan Lee.
But also thank you. Yes, thank you,
Shout out Stan
Stanley.
Lee.
Thank
Excelsior.
you to all the writers, all the people in positions of power who create these mediums, who dare to, push the narrative forward when it comes to villains and give us things that made our heroes introspective and subsequently made us introspective. So thank you guys for always trying and pushing the envelope or pushing the bar forward, as they say. And with that, I thank you. You've been a very, very heroic, invisible audience.
New black whip, got fed up, told me get my shit together, had to get it back for the better, knew me, oh vendetta, lies never prosper when I stack this spreader.
You can't put the blame on me, and I hold it down while you run around. You call your girls to spill